me with a mask on, but if you can't, just raise your hand and I'll yell louder. But I'm just getting over a cold and flu, so I figured I'd just be safe and not spread any germs with everyone. But thank you for coming. Thank you for the flexibility of rescheduling this meeting. And I'm also glad it's at 6 o'clock, so hopefully we had more people than we would have at 3:30. So, calling the meeting to order here, and we are going to review the operating budget. I hope everyone signed in the back. If you did not sign in the back, please do so before you leave today. And if I could ask that you write nice and neat for Betsy too, that would be great. And then the other thing is, we're going to go through each section and each line item. And at the end of each line item, or each section, I'm going to ask if there are any questions or if there needs to be any clarification. So at that time, if you would please state your name, that way we can have that in the minutes as well. I would appreciate it. If I miss you and I don't see your hand up, please be sure to raise it really high so I can call on you and we can get all of our questions answered. The other thing is, I don't answer a question I don't know the answer to. So if it's something that you bring up tonight, our second meeting is next Tuesday, the 4th, and I can answer the question at that time, or I will get back to you after today's meeting. Ask away. This is your chance to find out what our budget is made up of, what your budget is made up of. We want to know all of the questions you have. If you leave today and you think of something else, contact any of us through the select office or bring it to the next meeting. But we really encourage you guys to ask the questions and find out what we're putting on paper here for the budget. All right, we are going to start with the selectman's office, or the select board office, and we have the expenses for the officer's salaries, the selectman's expenses, and the treasurer expenses. 2024 budget $35,022, and the 2025 budget is $31,258. That is a decrease of 10.75%. And the reason for that is because last year we had 4 elections and the officers get paid, the elected officers get paid based on the number of elections. So that's the decrease there. Any questions, Bob? Frank?
No, good.
Any questions from the public? All right. Moving on to the town clerk. Last year's budget, $108,901. This year's proposed budget, $115,285, an increase of 5.86%, or $6,384. We put in a 3% cost of living increase. There was also a decrease in the number of elections. But we have those fancy new poll pads and our election equipment now, and there's a little bit more of an expense to programming that equipment for each of the elections. So it's a trade-off. We get to go home a little earlier after election night, and we get to have really accurate results that are programmed for us ahead of time. So that's where the swing is in some of those costs. Any questions? Any questions from the public? Did you guys like the poll pads experience? Yes? All good? Indifferent, right? Got us through the lines. We had really incredible, 87% turnout at the election, which was just incredible. So thanks for being there. All right, the next area is financial administration. Last year's budget, $227,422. This year's proposed budget, $250,443. That's a 10.12% increase, or $23,000. As you can see on the right-hand side, the major increases are in the office wages, the professional fees, the utilities and communication, and the town report printing. And I'll start with the professional fees. The accounting firm, or the professional firm that does our annual review and they're our everyday contact for everything professional, and Julie's got them on speed dial. Their fees went up substantially this year by about $8,000 to $9,000. So that was a large increase. We are still able to not have a full audit, which would probably cost us about $100,000 a year. So because of our size of our town and the requirements, we don't have to have a full audit. But these folks at Coas Advisors help us get through everything squeaky clean, and they are, like I said, they are Julie's kind of right-hand contact, and Betsy's too, for any questions that revolve around finances, the budget, anything like that. So it's an expensive cost, but it's a worthy cost that we have to have. And then into it is our payroll and accounting system, and then the website costs. So that's the big increase in the professional fees. The utilities and communication is an increase in the IT support. And again, as things get more automated, they cost a little bit more down the road as well. Heading back up to the office wages, we're just raising those with a little bit more than 3% in some of the positions. For all of our staff, Bob, Frank, and I consider each position every year. So in the past, we've done sort of flat 3% COLA, or whatever COLA is. We've done some flat increases. It's not that easy anymore when it comes to staff, and we've also experienced turnover and new staff in certain positions. So with every single position that's on this budget, we give a lot of thought and consideration to the fair wage that is deserved in each position. So I will probably, I'm saying that now so I don't have to repeat myself for each of the line items for wages, but we really feel very fortunate for the people that we have on our staff. We feel very fortunate for the success rate that we have in collecting our taxes from our taxpayers because of the hard work of the town tax collector's office. So there are many things that go into why we value our employees. And, you know, Jim Langdon is here. He's our new highway chief. Thank you for sanding the roads when we didn't even have snow in the forecast today. You know, everyone is very valuable in their positions, and we've been very fortunate to have the staff that we do. So I'm just prefacing that for all of the wage line items. Frank, Bob, questions? No. Any staff questions? Any public questions or comments? Thank you. Assessing. I know everyone would like to take this line item out so we never have our properties reassessed again, but we still have to pay them $44,000 a year, so that is unchanged. We did increase our legal fees, and part of that is because we are required to have the bond counsel and some other ongoing issues, some of them short-term rental related and some of them just increased legal consultation. Back a few years ago, I think our budget was $50,000. We dropped it down because we hadn't used the dollars, and we're bumping it back up again. I hope we don't have to use it, folks. Really, that's not a line item we like to use a lot. We love it to come in at $6,963 for the year, but we are being a little proactive because we know there are certain larger things coming up. So the budget from 2024 was $35,000, going up to $50,000, a large increase of 42.86%. Questions? Any? Yes, Laurel.
So you had a budget of $35,000 for 2024 and only spent just under $7,000?
Yes.
What happens with that?
Part of it, like I said, is the bond counsel because we are required to hire them for the purpose of the bond, but the rest of it is sort of in anticipation of, I guess we don't want to get caught behind. It is a stiff increase. Could we consider dropping it a little? We probably could give that more thought and see where we come in with the full budget. Like I said, Julie?
Yeah, the attorney also increased his fees, so.
Damn it. Sorry.
So that's accounted for in there.
Yeah. Not that much, but yeah, I mean, we will definitely give that some more consideration. I just, like I said, I don't ever like to feel like we're caught behind the 8 ball and not being able to use those services. Jerry?
Yeah, going back to the assessing, I remember that there was some discussion back some time ago, the village district versus the rural residential district for Wentworth Hall, relative to the assessing of those things. Has that been settled? Is that, everybody happy with that?
I do not know the answer to that. Anybody?
I haven't heard anything.
I'll look into that for you. Not sure on that one.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, anything else before we move on? All right. Personnel administration. This is basically our employee benefits for insurance, New Hampshire retirement, and Social Security and Medicare. It's directly correlates to the amount of the wages that we're paying. So the 2024 budget is $570,177. The current budget, proposed budget is $595,808, an increase of 4.5%. We know that the New Hampshire retirement is going to go down in mid-year, but we don't know exactly how much. So there is a good possibility that we will be over budget, we will underspend the budget in this area once we know what the numbers are, but until we do, we don't want to underestimate that budgeted amount. And then health insurance increased 10.23% for the year. And I've heard a lot worse numbers than that. It's one of those necessary evils, I guess. And then we do have a line item in there budgeted for a new police officer, which we will talk about when we get to the police officer area. Questions, comments? Any public comments or questions? Sarah?
Is it still the policy to have the town employees pay 5% of their health insurance?
Yes.
And you feel that's fair?
Yes. Any
Yeah, I feel it's fair, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Planning and zoning boards. Last year, $11,000. This year, $2,500, a decrease of 77.27%. There just wasn't a large need to replenish those funds, so they were brought in at a lot lesser dollars this year. And the larger amount for the planning board for 2024 was in case it was needed for the capital improvement plan, and those funds were not used. Good. Any public comment, questions? All right. General government parks and buildings, $44,500 for the 2024 budget and $43,000 for the 2025 proposed budget. The reduction is mostly in the town electrical expenses, which came in much farther under budget, so we reduced that budget for the coming year. Questions? Sarah?
Again, I'm going to ask about, I think I might have asked about it at an earlier meeting at one point, but how is our solar system doing with what we've got so far on our buildings? I know how is that helping with the electrical cost, or do you have that figure?
I don't have that figure, but I will have it for the next meeting. And because I actually have a question about that for the power purchase agreement and all that, and what the projected costs and savings are. So I will have that for the next meeting. Solar projections. Thank you for bringing that up.
I could say one thing to that.
Yes, Julie?
In the summer months, we don't have an electric bill here at this office or at the highway garage.
So we
pretty
eat into
much
the
offsets
credits.
it,
Lots of
yeah.
credits.
Oh, nice.
But we do pay for the purchase agreement. So it's a quarterly expense.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, flipping the page. The cemeteries is a flat level budget at $12,000 from 2024 to 2025. Questions, comments, changes, anything?
No.
All right. On the insurance line, this is the property and liability insurance, and went from $90,731 to $99,115, a 9.24% increase. That's nothing that we have a lot of control over, and with all of the natural disasters that we have had in the past year, I can't even imagine what it could be in the following years, but we do the best we can on that. Questions, comments? Anything? Yes, Linda?
I was wondering what sort of costs were incurred for the school property? Was that related to the flooding?
Say that again.
To flooding
Talking
for
about
other
the
bad rainstorms?
clean costs
Or
for
was
the
it
school
Oh.
and municipal.
Higher expected claim.
Yeah.
Under the narrative.
Got you.
This is just municipal.
Okay, so that didn't have
The school
anything.
has their own Primex insurance, so.
Did our high claims cost come in from anything? We didn't have any other claim costs besides the Historical Society? Was that?
Historical Society, Jackson Falls, the Highway Garage.
So the school should be taken out of the
Yeah,
narrative.
that's just the blurb that they give us.
Oh,
But yeah, I
got
can
it.
take that's just the school out, because really it's just for municipalities.
Okay. Well, we cut the budget by words. That's all. Any other questions about the insurance? All right, building inspection. 2024 budget, $81,024, and the 2025 budget, $61,880. The septic design, system design and review, we increased that a little bit based on we're redoing our site disturbance ordinance, and we're anticipating that we could have more work for Mr. Burr Phillips to do, so we're bumping that budget a little bit for septic design review. And then drop down the fuel costs. Questions on that, guys?
No.
Public questions or comments?
I'll just make a comment about Kevin doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
And I think we all know that. And he's a very busy man. Every agenda has a list of places that he has to look at. Good job, Kevin.
Thanks. All right, for the police department, the 2024 budget, $377,135. 2025 proposed budget, $416,321, an increase of 10.39%. As you can see, there are a couple of decreases, but I'm going to move back up to the top line here just a second. We do have increases for our current police staff, but Chief Purley is very masterful at succession planning. He is looking to retire soon, and he has some dates in mind. So the projection for the police department wages has us bringing in a fourth police officer in the fourth quarter of the year. So that is budgeted in here as well. A lot of thought and process goes into this this number, and while it's definitely a large increase, if things go the way Chief is projecting them to with his succession planning, next year's budget will be going down in the police department. So this is sort of a one-time blip. I thank the guys that are out there, and we have our new Academy trainee, Will Eaton, that is going to be active in April, May, June area. So we're looking to have a full force in the spring, and then at the end of the year, hopefully have another officer that can come on board as we move Chief to plan for Chief Purley's party. Questions?
He says a question.
I was asking
Oh,
you guys
sorry.
first.
No, we're good.
Sarah?
I have a question.
Yes.
I got a little confused there. So you're saying that in the last quarter, you're hiring a new full-time police officer. We will have how many full-time police officers at that time?
4.
So we have that,
We have Chief Purley, we have Mike Mosier, and we have Will Eaton, who is in the academy right now. We'll have a fourth for part of the end of the year, towards the end of the year, and that will be training as Chief Purley moves out towards like the first quarter of 2026.
My follow-up question
Yes.
is, should Chief Hurley change his mind, what do we do then? Do we have 5?
Yes. No, seriously, that's a really, it is a good question. You know, we always think of things like, you know, I guess back when Chief had 2 people, it's like 2 people can become 1 if 1 becomes sick. So we appreciate depth as much as we can without going overboard. If Chief changes his mind, we'll be talking about his entire budget and what to do. So we will not be hiring a 4th police officer without that succession plan being in place and being held to, I'll call it. But yeah, we're not going to go overboard and hire a 4th police officer. Does that answer it?
More or less.
You want to talk to Chief after the meeting? Yeah. No, I appreciate that consideration because it is fluid. I mean, budgets are, you know, they're set here today based on what we're projecting for the year. But I appreciate the forethought and planning because you don't always get that benefit, get to have that benefit from certain departments and stuff, so.
I do have one question.
Yes.
To Chief. So we'll have 4 at the end of this year, but ultimately we're gonna end up back at 3 or
Yes.
2
Yes.
and 2? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and, you know, we've and good evening, everyone. You know, we've really tried to find the sweet spot with coverage, both by need for the town, as well as response to demand. So that's what I've tried to do with this budget. You know, all budgets are really a projection forward in time. This budget, really, I'd like you to consider it more of a projection. It's a 2-year projection rather than a 1-year projection. I'll explain that if I can take just a minute.
1 minute.
I will tell you, there will be no
Go ahead.
mind changing. Or you'll have to disarm Mrs. Purley, because I don't think she'll let me change my mind.
Yeah.
Change my mind. Because of the budgeting cycle being March, it does not coincide with the training cycles of the New Hampshire Police Academy. So if we hire an untrained officer, they can only go certain times. They can go in January, they can go in May, and they can go in September. And you can't have an officer working prior to their training and certification. So what I'm trying to do with this budget, in anticipation of me leaving July 17th, 2026, at noon, is I budgeted for an entry-level officer, uncertified, for the last quarter of the year. The reason for that is if we get somebody hired by October, November, probably the latest would be mid-November, we can get them into the January session of the New Hampshire Police Academy. There's only 3 sessions. It's a 16-week program, and then they're in training for 16 weeks. That means they come out in April, just like Will Eaton is now. He's in week 4, he'll be out in April. In April, then there's about another month of field training, and then they can be a viable working officer. So that's April to May. In July, I'm gone. 3 people with our schedule, which is we call it a 4 and 2. We work 4 days on and 2 days off, and the days off move. With 3 people, we get 16 hours of labor, 7 days a week. Vacations, court, and sickness accepted. But generally speaking, 16 hours of coverage, 7 days a week. That's really what we need. That doesn't count call. We cover call, every night. But that gives you a live body in town for 16 hours. So with that, that prepares the town for my departure in July, so that you don't go from 3 to 2, and then you have a gappy schedule. We have a little gap, but we don't have any open holes, but 2 is tough. This was a super busy year. Much credit to Sergeant Mike. We had to do a lot, and it's just the 2 of us. 3 is really the sweet spot, but 3 goes to 2 real quick, and then you're overburdening those 2. I want to get it to kind of like 3.75. Then it goes back to 3 with my departure, and then the labor budget goes down because a sergeant really becomes 2 patrolmen, a chief becomes a chief. So you have a wage dip there. So looking over 2 years, 26 and 27, you're gonna kind of have a clawback of it. Like the first year 17, the second year like 38, and then your wage is really gonna go down really about the same percentage. What is that, 10%? It'll go down about 10%. in 27, by 27, about 5 in 26, and then 10 in 27. And then you're kind of back to parity where you're at. We cut 3,500 out of the operating budget to try to offset that a little bit where we could. But that's kind of the secret sauce in the numbers, so that the service level that you're used to and that we like to provide doesn't decline, and that we have, you know, no money, no mission. You gotta have the money to recruit somebody. If we wait till 2026, we don't get money till March, they go in May, they're still in the academy, I leave, you're down to 2. It's problematic, so that's the plan.
Thank you. And the other thing is, that's assuming that we can find someone when we start recruiting.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's easier said than done. So we're planning as much as we can to have the coverage that we need. So, questions? All right. On the ambulance budget, this is kind of weird, right? You look at this and you go, okay, our budget was $61,000 for 2024, but we spent 0. We just finished our budget meeting with the ambulance committee, and our number will change for 2025 to be $38,600, so it's going down slightly. The reason why they asked for no funds in 2024 is because they were operating on their own collections. They did $40,000 to $50,000 in transfers alone from just transferring private patients. We are so blessed, and I don't know, whoever's needed the ambulance in town here, and we pay less than $40,000 a year. It's pretty incredible, the service we have and the folks that are dedicated to that. So, and the way it works too with them is if they don't need the money because their collections are high, they won't ask us for the money. It's pretty incredible. They're really dedicated folks. Bob is an EMT as well, and it's quite astounding, actually. So to reiterate, though, that $61,540 was the 2024 budget. The 2025 budget is going down to $38,600. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, the fire budget. 2024 budget is $229,339, and the 2025 budget is $223,131. As you can see, most of it is the utilities and propane, and then we had dollars in last year for the emergency communication system on Tyrol Mountain, which we didn't spend and aren't anticipating to spend any money on moving forward. And then the fire wages went up according to our COLA increases. Comments or questions? Any public comments, questions? Jerry?
Jay, you were able to recruit a couple new people recently?
Yeah, we have, this year, 2020, technically 2025, we got one brand new person, I think 2, one's showing up tonight and one called about it tonight. So yes, we've had pretty good luck the last month.
And have you had any success recruiting anybody in Jackson?
Huh?
Residents of
Anyone in
Jackson.
All 3 of them in Jackson.
Jackson?
2 of them are actually young, they're young too, I believe. Well, one I know is, the other I think is, I gotta meet with that person, but. So we had a really good year for that.
Good job.
Or we're gonna, I should say 25.
Sarah?
How many volunteers do you have at this time?
As of today, we're 25 or 26, I think we had, and then there's 2 possibly more.
I was just curious.
So our cap is usually we get up around 29. We kind of start to, there's got to be a limit to how many people we can have, but there's always an exception, I guess. There's always an exception.
Pete?
I would just add that we need more than we needed in the past, especially for day coverage, because there's not as many people here during the day as there used to be. So we need to spread that out a little bit more.
Interesting. Any other questions? All right, thanks for all you guys do. It's very appreciated.
Sure.
Emergency management, 2024 budget, 13,801, and the 2025 budget is 14,095. I can't even begin to explain how much work Emily has done this year on our emergency management program and the FEMA work from the floods and everything. So increases is the cost of living increase. Any questions? Any public comments or questions? All right, thank you. On to the highway administration. This is broken out into two sections. So the first section is the increase, or the wages, and that is starting with the 2024 budget of $275,564 and the 2025 budget of $268,975, a decrease of 2.39 wages, or 2.39%. And as you can see on the note below, the January emergency repairs from the rain event in 2024 were cost us some money there. So we're anticipating that the wages will be a little less, and we're knocking wood. Questions? Any comments, questions? Thanks again, Jim, for stepping in. We're really happy to have you aboard. I don't know if everyone has read minutes or seen, but Jim Langdon, who has been with us for a little over 10 years, has stepped into the role that was left vacant when Gary passed away. And so thank you for being here and doing what you do with your crew. It's appreciated. All right, on the highway operating budget, the 2024 budget is $455,962, and the 2025 budget is $455,840. Pretty flat. We still have the $100,000 in there for highway road maintenance and $50,000 in for culverts, which is much needed. So we're not doing anything to remove that until all those culverts can be repaired and we can keep our road maintenance and our roads in good condition. So the fact that you're keeping it flat is pretty impressive, actually. We do have an increase of maintenance of town grounds just for some other maintenance. That's it. The ball field and things, yeah. Any questions? Any public questions? Jerry?
Has the sand shed helped in your operation?
We're starting to see the benefits of it. It came late in the fall, so the sand land was still a little thinner. But I said give it a year, and we will see the benefits probably by next fall, where the sand will be much drier. We don't have to screen it so many times for door trucks. But just this year alone, it's going to help because the snow stays off it, the rain stays off of it, and hopefully we'll keep that down a little bit. It's just more usable, less time invested. So it has been a very good investment. Thank you.
Great. Great to hear. Any other questions? All right. Solid waste disposal. Transfer station dollars for 2024, $149,627, and the 2025 budget is $157,491, an increase of 5.26%. We get these numbers directly from Bartlett, but I don't because they actually employ the employees of the transfer station, and we reimburse them 25%. So the increase is for staffing there. And also some of the tipping fees and things went up. So it's a conservative budget. Any questions on that? And I don't know if I'm opening Pandora's box here, but because we don't have the transfer station store, I hope everyone is reading the Whitney Center news and participating in the yard sales that they're having to help move some of your stuff that you have, because they're doing a second yard sale. They just had one in the past few weekends that was very successful, and also using the Jackson Bridge and some of the thrift shops to move things along that you have in your home that you don't need anymore and someone else can benefit from. So glad to have those resources. Any questions? All right. Animal control, $500 flat, and we pay that out just as sort of a subcontracted fee. Public welfare, $6,000 in 2024, and we're raising that to $15,000 in 2025. This is a pure indication of the state of what's going on in our world right now. We have barely ever touched our public welfare budget, and we have had many cases in the past year. We try to work in conjunction with the churches, the way station, any of the resources that are available in the valley, and it's been a really tough situation. We do see it increasing as well, so that's why we're increasing the budget to $15,000 moving forward. Questions, guys? Sarah?
I'm just, I see the increase is 150%, but I don't know what the perimeters are, but are you saying that we have more people living in Jackson that need welfare?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And again, we have certain resources where we can help them to get fuel assistance if needed, or hotel rooms if they're not, if they're homeless and things like that. But there are certain rules that we have to follow as far as an application for public assistance and RSAs and things like that. But these are residents of Jackson that have needed assistance. Any other questions? Under the library.
May I?
Oh, yes.
Excuse me for interrupting.
No worries.
I know back years ago, Chief Curley recommended that we put in, I don't know if it's an ordinance or whatever, so that like campers and so on and so forth couldn't be on public lands and.
Yes, that ordinance has been in place for 6 years.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking is, with this assistance, I'm hoping that you're going to tell me, maybe you can't, but these people are not living in tents or in our, on our properties in tents and that type of thing.
Right, and I don't know how much I can elaborate on that, but we do our best to make sure that no one is homeless. So if they come to us because they need shelter, we do have inns and hotels where we can put them up so they are not living in tents or living in conditions that are not safe and healthy for them. So we do have that ability to do that. It's not on a long-term basis, obviously. It's so we can help them get back on their feet. But, if I can't be perfectly honest and tell you that there's no one living in tents in Jackson. I hope not. But,
right, but I guess what I'm saying, not on public land, it would be private land or, whatever. But it's not, because I just remembered thinking that we had an ordinance to prohibit that type of.
Yes.
To protect the town, but to protect the persons as well.
Right.
I'm sure we're helping with people with electric bills, fuel bills, things like that when they come to us.
Right.
It's been traditionally the way.
County facilities that can help with that as well.
Right, like I said, there's an RSA that very much dictates what we are able to do and not able to do, and that's also where we start calling out to other resources to help with those different assistances and things. So, some people need food, some people need shelter, some need both. So wherever we can help, we work together as a team.
Right, between town and county and
yes,
nonprofit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. On the library side, the budget for 2024 was $146,200, and the budget for 2025 is $152,345, an increase of 4.2%. There are some great notes below here as far as the the wages and the trustee expenses, and the town report will have the library budget in full. But does anyone have any questions specifically tonight about the budget? Jerry?
Is there still a charity that's helped support the library?
Well, the Friends of
Friends
the
of
Jackson Public Library provide us with a donation every year, and the amount of that donation would be encompassed under this line item called library trustee expenses.
Wasn't there a fund that the library was a beneficiary of?
The library is able to tap some of the resources within funds that are managed by the trustees of trust funds, and we will be doing that this year. However, those funds are earmarked for specific purposes, so we have to make sure that we only use money for those purposes. And in addition, we have several savings accounts which are being held at TD Bank, also with restrictions, and we're trying to be very careful about monitoring that we're using funds in accordance with donors' intents. You can see on the reports that have been filed by trustees of trust funds, the amounts in the library-related funds, and the library report, the summary financials from the library will have a list of the TD Bank accounts, which are also our assets.
And some of those are used to offset the expenses of the library.
For example, this year we plan to use some funds from a TD Bank account, which are earmarked for purchase of children's books. We also plan to use some of the trustee of trust funds money in the March account, the income segment,
That's what I
to
was
apply
referring to,
towards
the March.
maintenance and improvements.
So the March fund is still there. It's still-
There's a significant amount of money in the March account.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
I have a question. Are we through the town wage part of the budget? Or is there going to be more? That was just thinking the question I have.
I believe we are.
So I sent a email to the selectmen in the town of Jackson. In our town report in 2017 with 2018 wages, we put the position and we put the person's name, because you said you're doing it differently now. You're not just giving it to 3%. It's
Right.
going on. And so it had the budgeted wages, and then it had the inspector, his name, wages, and budgeted OT, winter stipends, statutory benefits, and it told us the total of each employee that we had. And I felt that was very transparent. It gave us knowledge of what people were being paid. And I asked every year since, because last year it says full-time, part-time, and so on. I want to know why we can't continue with this methodology for transparency. That was my question. Another question is, you're telling all of us that we're good to our employees, and I think we are. But also, too, I think that on our website, possibly, or in the town report, we could give people the amount of time you work for the town of Jackson, your PTO time, and this was in my request, the PTO time, paid holidays, the extra days we give at Thanksgiving and Christmas. I just think that transparency should be had. I know it's in the policy book, but I don't think the taxpayers come in here and look at your policy book. So what I'm saying to you is, I just felt, I don't know why it stopped, but I would appreciate it if you'd consider putting it back in the town report. I think it's very transparent, and if you do not feel that if you work 1 through 3 years, you get extra, PTO time or whatever. If you do not feel that that is warranted to go into a town report, but it hasn't changed, I don't think, in years.
Right.
We've added an extra federal holiday. I mean, they get all federal holidays, which is what, 15 now or 12? I don't know. But I'm just saying, I think transparency is warranted, because I just feel that we keep getting a little bit out of that type of information, and I appreciate that. And I'll hold my other question till the end.
Okay. Thank you. And as you do every year, Sarah, I appreciate your input on this and asking this. And I do want to make sure that everyone knows that this information is available at the Select Board's office, if you want to see that in the meantime. Pete?
Yeah, on the library, we have almost a 20% increase in salary, and I was just wondering, since one of our staff is retiring, and it says, community need identified in the library strategic plan. The public never saw the plan, so we don't know what the need is really. So can we get some sense of why there's such an increase?
Linda, go
I'd
ahead.
be happy to answer your question. First of all, in 2024, there was an oversight, and the budget for the town compensation didn't take into account Saturday hours. Normally, there are 4.5 hours of staff time on each Saturday. So consequently, when you look at the total amount of wages paid in 2024, $87,702. This is what came out of town revenues, tax appropriations. That was an understated amount. The total wages actually paid were $95,982. The library was able to come up with sufficient funds to repay the town and cover the overage. So in 2025, we've included the Saturday hours, and we've also added some extra hours per week beginning in April in order to provide services which were requested by community members in the strategic plan survey. So that brought our compensation request to $104,040. We have, if you compare the actual amount of wages in 2024, which was $95,982 versus the amount we're requesting this year, it is only a 7.8% increase. We have every intention of filling the spot, which is currently occupied by Meredith when she retires. And so if anything, I guess I'm hopeful that we'll be able to find someone at an amount of compensation, not more than what we're paying Meredith, but that still remains to be seen. We're not intending to reduce staff at all.
So in essence, the community need was more hours for at the library.
In order to meet the community need, we would have to add not the total number of hours the library is open, that will remain the same, but we want to be able to provide additional programs that have been, and events that the community has requested, which means we need to have, perhaps, I'll just give an example, we might need to have 2 staff members available during a particular time slot so that a program can be conducted. Also, the Friends run various events, on average 1 per month. These are generally run during hours when the library is not typically open. Most frequently it's in the like 7 to 8:30 time range, and we prefer to have a library staff member in attendance during those events, and so we want to take that into account. And finally, one other area where we want to allow for more time for staff members is in order to enable them to have staff meetings with everybody in attendance in order to discuss progress on the strategic plan and other matters.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Great to have you here. Any other questions about the library? All right. Other conservation, this is the Jackson Conservation Commission, $1,500 last year's budget, $1,500 this year, and there was fence repair that had to be done, so that was a little bit over what we had budgeted, but it is going to be reimbursed through an insurance claim. So any questions on that? All right. Other culture and recreation is $10,500 from last year, $11,000 for this year, up 4.76%. And this is Jackson Flicks and Hank filming the meetings, and Valley Vision Channel 3, $5,000. And we have a few more committees and things. Hank tries to get to as many meetings as he can to film them, and he always tells us how many views he has of the different meetings, and it's really wonderful to hear that people do actually go on to Jackson Flicks and watch our meetings, so it's a good thing. Questions, comments? Any public comments? Jerry?
I noticed Hank isn't here, but his equipment is.
Yes.
Is he okay?
He
Yeah,
is,
he's
he works at Grants,
I know
and
that.
he did have the flu and a few things, he's been, yeah, he's doing well though.
Because I noticed he has not been filming the school board meetings, and I was hoping that somehow we could encourage him to,
Yeah.
maybe do this at the school board meeting.
Yeah, I would definitely do that, have Jess talk to him for sure.
Our first meeting started at 3 this
Yeah.
afternoon. He was here, set up,
Yeah.
and stayed as long as he could, and he'll be back in the
I
morning
know,
to get his
I
stuff.
see him at Grant, so I know he works there. All
The $500 increase is not for Julie being his IT assistant either, it's all Hank, so. All right. Parks and Recreation, $6,700, and this is flat for the budget, and this is the amount that we pay to the Bartlett Rec Department. Any questions on that? All right. Debt service. You can start with the top. The budget for 2024 was $60,973, and the budget for 2025 is $83,573, an increase of 37%. The main number there, of course, is the interest on the Valley Crossroad Bridge. It's our favorite subject at every meeting, especially when we get to talk about the trusses. That's our really favorite topic. But really what this is for is because even though the state pays for 75% of the cost of the bridge repair, we don't get that money until it's done. So we have borrowed money in our Valley Crossroad Bridge loan, and the interest on that will be $38,000 once we pay that off. So we don't get to bill the state back that part either. But, shame. Any questions on that? Yes, Sarah?
Again, thanks for announcing my name, because we're all chatting, but
Yes.
at least you tell us who we are. Thank you.
Yes.
My question is, it was due to be done in November.
Right.
I attended the meeting previously. They said June, and then Julie explained that she was hoping that it could be done in April
Yeah.
because of some technicality on monies.
There's two things that have been held up. One is the trusses, and I joked about that, but they're historical trusses. When they went to refurbish the trusses, they found some deterioration, and it also is costing $100 and some thousand more for the truss remediation. And then we were able to save some money in certain areas, so the total that the increased budget is for the bridge is an increase of $114,000. The other part of it, though, is the stonework that's underneath. And because of weather, they haven't been able to finish that stonework underneath. So that's what's dragging this out. Are we disappointed? Yes. Are we surprised? Nah, probably not so much. We were really hopeful that it would be finished this year, but they're doing a really great job. It's just taking a lot more time than we thought it was going to. So June is the date that we have, and it's a soft date right now, so I can't promise that that will be the date it opens. Some of it's going to be weather reliant, and Julie's been in contact with the engineers, the contractor, the main general contractor, et cetera. So I guess what I can say right now is this is where our note sits right now. We do have timing issues on when that note comes due and whether or not we'll have our money back from the state by then. So that's what conversations we're having right now. And also, we need to know what date we're really anticipating that the bridge will be done and the state will be paying us back. Did that answer your question?
Yes, but I hope you give them a good push.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 or 7 months over, I mean, even with the weather, I think is pushing it.
Yeah, that's a tough thing because, like I said, it's the stonework, which you can't do when it's cold because of the materials that they use, and the trusses that are just unbelievably not complicated, but they're complicated, I guess. So, Jerry?
Some construction jobs have fines for running over the date.
Right, we
Was
have
that
talked
put into
about
the contract at all?
It was, there is a contingency and I I forget what the phrase is, that we could, Bill, it's something that we have talked about, but we have not imposed right now.
And is it appropriate to cross the bridge now?
You can cross the bridge when it's open, yes. It's not open to pedestrians, and it's only open to one car each way, of course, but, which it has been for many years. But yes, you can cross that with a car.
So, I have a question, as a pedestrian, because I like walking around and so on and so forth, you're telling me I can't go in the middle of the bridge like a car?
We're not publicizing, publicly saying that it's open for
So it's
pedestrians,
open for
because
cars,
our walkway is not where it's going to be when it's done. So I'm not gonna run you off the bridge if I see you walking down the middle, though, I promise. Just be careful. Any other questions about that? And thanks for everyone's patience on that. It's just been a really interesting, with a capital I, interesting process to go through. We haven't had to go through something like this not in my education, nor Julie's. So working with all of the contractors, it's quite a job. All right, any other questions? Our total operating budget for 2024 was $3,055,118, and our 2025 proposed budget, as it's printed, is $3,181,240. 4.13% increase. That, of course, will change before our next meeting next week as we tie some of these numbers, like the ambulance budget and a few of the things we talked about tonight. We will look at the legal fees and see if we want to tighten that up at all. It could end up the same as what it is tonight, though, but we will address that. The numbers that you see down below that line on the agents to expend capital outlay or fixed assets. So we did buy the new fire department equipment and the PD cruiser. We spent money out on the River Walk, the Valley Crossroad Bridge, and then the $340,000 of other, which is detailed on here. So that was outlay from our 2024 actual dollars. Any questions? All right. Anybody need a break? We're good? Let's go. All right. We are going to move on to the warrant articles. What?
I didn't know we were doing warrant articles.
Oh, wait, are we doing?
We can do these, but we don't have the actual.
Right.
warrant
We're just going to
articles.
review the
Okay.
numbers tonight. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're really just going to go over this page of the warrant articles. On the back, we're not going to go over the revenue side of it. So on the warrant articles, I'm not going to read each one, but I am going to make a few comments based on the changes. If you look at our recurring capital reserve funds, and if anyone remembers from last year, or if not, here's a refresher course. We took out the fire department truck, $80,000, which we have been funding every year. We took out the $100,000 for the highway truck and the $100,000 for the highway heavy equipment in 2024. The reason why we took those out in 2024 was to help us absorb the costs for the salt shed and the $250,000 fire station engineering study. So by reducing the amount we put into the warrant articles for those capital reserve funds, we helped absorb those other costs. We're putting them back in this year and proposing that they go into the 2025 budget at the rates that they were previously funded in the prior years. Does that make sense to everyone? And then on the, let me see if there's anything else here. Okay, and then on the recurring expendable trust funds, I'm going to just give some general information, then we can talk about details. On the recurring expendable trust funds, from $192,000 last year to the 2025 proposed budget of $232,000. The big number there is the bridge repair, and it puts $35,000 into the capital reserve, or the expendable trust fund for that overage for the Valley Crossroad Bridge. So you can see there's a balance of $99,492. We add $35,000 into that. I'm sorry, We add 125,000 into that, and it helps us cover the shortfall on the Valley Cross Bridge, plus build up the balance a little bit. And then the Police Department Equipment Fund. The Police Department is doing some increased technological improvements to their vehicles. So they're going to be replacing their computers, and some of the money they're spending is also covered by grants. So this isn't the full amount, but they're going to be, go ahead, Chief, do it better.
Yeah, this is, we received a grant for about $14,000 that's going to go towards mobile data terminals in the cruisers. This is, we had a communication from Northledge Technology that in 2025, our Windows platform is expiring, our computers are 7 years old, and they recommend that we do an upgrade. I don't have a hard number. This is kind of a placeholder right now, but I'm waiting for a quote. We have 5 workstations plus software plus interconnectability because we use the server at the Sheriff's Department for our information management system. So that's what the $18,000. The $3,000 is a standard deposit in that account, and that pays a lease fee for tasers, which, if you can believe how much those things cost, we pay for like 5 years. So it's really, it's a one-time because of the computer cost that's going to be there because our equipment is aging out. 7 years is a long time to have laptops.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why do you have 5 computers?
Well, we have 4 workstations, and we have an extra in the booking room, so that's 5.
Okay.
We use 3 regularly, and then 1 is there in case one's down. So
Okay.
we have a bit of backup. That's what the 18's for. It's not a completely hard number yet. I hope it's not going to be higher. I think it's going to be a little lower.
Okay. Any questions on those? On the recurring social services and Chamber of Commerce support. 2024 budget, $27,791. 2025 proposed budget, $28,249. Just an FYI, we don't ask people to come to the meetings. We could ask people to come to the meetings to represent all of the different social services that are here, but we do ask them to give us a request every year that details why they're asking for this money. If anyone is curious to see those requests, they're available in the select office, or if you're curious about any of these line items, please let me know. We'll get you in contact with the person, or we can invite them to the next meeting or whatever. But these are, we do vet the information that they send us to make sure it makes sense for the town. So again, we don't ask folks to come from every organization to come to the meeting, but if anyone has any questions or concerns or whatever about any of these, please let me know. Anyone?
I have a question about the
Yes.
fireworks. The fireworks going to be in September or in July this year?
July.
July,
July.
yes.
July 3rd.
Yeah, they're going back to July for all those fireworks
4th of July,
enthusiasts.
right around there.
Right? So. On the new 2025 proposed budget, we have 5 different articles here. The first one is the fire department emergency radio communications, and that is $7,000. If we remember, we talked about the Tyrol radios being in the fire department budget. We took it out of there, and it's in the warrant article now. So that's moved over to there, so we can put it away if we need it. It's not going to go away.
Will that become expendable?
Yes. So it goes to an expendable trust fund versus being gone. We have talked for a couple of years now at least about setting up expendable trust funds for our town office building, our highway garage building, and all of our other town parks and buildings. So those next 3 lines, the 50,000, the 25, and the other 50,000, are brand new ETFs that we're looking to set up because our buildings are getting older. We're going to need repairs eventually, and we're trying to be proactive in planning for things for our town-owned buildings, like we do for most of our other assets. And then the last $100,000 on here is a request from the Historical Society for their moving the town hall building, the Historical Society building, which is a town-owned building. And they asked us to put $100,000 to include in the proposed budget to assist with that. They have raised over $750,000 through grants, donations, an LCHIP grant, and some other funds. So they've asked us to chip in $100,000. Thoughts, questions?
Jerry, good question.
Oh, I'm asking you
Oh,
guys
oh,
first.
oh,
You get
okay,
first
that's
No,
dibs.
I'm good. I'm good.
Jerry?
Is that 100,000, is that selectmen supported?
I'm not in favor of it. Are you?
I'm not in favor of it also.
We have not voted on that.
No. But I think if we voted right now, it would be 2 to whatever Bob says, against.
Now, whether it should be a lesser amount,
I'm happy to hear that.
all right. But they did come to us when they talked about this move, which we were very enthusiastic about, is that, you know, it was gonna be donations. It was gonna take care of it.
I have one other question.
Yes.
Backing up a little bit, and I'm a strong proponent of this, I'm not complaining about it. The $50,000 for the maintenance of the fire department, do you anticipate that that will continue in years to come?
I'm going back up top on the fire department maintenance up top in the expendable trust funds.
Yes.
The reason why there's a couple reasons actually that we're keeping it in there. We don't know, first of all, if we're going to have a new fire station. The other thing is we may need to be doing something to that building if we build a new fire station. And, you know, there's a lot of sort of unknowns. Somebody asked at the previous meeting how much the maintenance is going to cost for a new fire station, and we don't know those dollars as well. So we are keeping it in there. It's sort of an unknown, but
I'm a proponent of that.
yeah.
But
But it's a good question. You know, we also don't know what that fire station is going to cost us to operate if we get a new fire station. And that would be actually in the year of 2026 too. So there's nothing for the maintenance and utilities and things like that for a new fire station, because we would still be in the old existing fire station for 2025. So, Jay?
Just, I know you mentioned the cost of maintenance for a new fire station, and that question came up at the bond hearing.
Right.
I'm waiting to hear back some final numbers on that, but surprisingly, the cost isn't gonna be that much more. It's probably gonna be a little bit higher, but not a lot. The hopeful is the electricity and the fuel savings on a new efficient building should be lower. Still waiting on 2 or 3 numbers back.
Mm-hmm.
And then the few other things that get added that bring the cost back up. In the end, it's not gonna be a huge increase for operations, you know, regular
Right.
maintenance for a new one. Just because somebody specifically asked that question
Yeah.
at the bond meeting. So I should hopefully know that final number soon.
Yeah. One of the other questions that's come up frequently that's been asked of me is what are the plans for the old fire station if the new fire station does get approved? You know, there's going to have to be money spent on that. Right now, there are no plans for that. We're taking one step at a time as far as whether or not a new fire station is approved at the town meeting this year. Once that happens, it's going to be, you know, a decisive factor of what happens to the old building. Now, are there many deficiencies in it? Yes. Is it ADA compliant? No. Is it hard to access? All the deficiencies are still going to be there whether we get a new fire station or not. But what we decide to do with that moving forward is to be determined. So we don't have any costs associated with that in our budget for any kind of infrastructure and improvement into the existing fire station. Linda, lots of hands.
My question pertains to the Historical Society building. And what I was wondering is whether the select board has the authority to approve all of the plans relative to moving the building and making the necessary repairs? And if the answer is yes, have you granted approval to the Historical Society for their plans?
That's a really good question. I don't know the
Well,
answer if we have.
We have a selectmen's meeting that
Yeah,
said we're all for going forward with this.
we did, yes, we did give them the authority to move forward with it. And the way they presented it, I don't remember if you were at the meeting or if you've seen the plans.
I haven't, but I'm.
They're
going to
so
the
impressive,
session this weekend.
right. They're so impressive and it's beautiful. It's a 2-phase plan and the phase 2 is extreme. It's like redoing our downtown area here. So it's very extensive and it would be very costly. It would have to do with changing roads and things. So it's so far out of the scope of just moving the Historical Society building. So right now we are all for them moving the building and putting it in a place where it won't be further damaged and it'll be accessible and in a good place. So I guess from that standpoint, yes, we do give them the thumbs up on that.
So don't misinterpret the 100,000 that we're saying we're not for.
Right.
You know,
No, I understand, that just has to do with the sourcing of funds
Yes.
to support the efforts, and they certainly have done a great job with their
And they have.
fundraising. I
Yeah.
just wondered whether the authority to move forward had been given to them.
Karen?
Let's just say the new fire station gets approved. Is it, who decides what to do with the old fire station? Is that something that town people do, or is it selectmen?
I can't answer that fully right now, but I would think if it's any kind of large capital expenditure, it would have to go to the town vote. You know, we can't put tens
Who
or
decides
hundreds of
what the use
thousands.
of it will be for the future?
That came up at the bond hearing,
Yeah.
and we basically intend, if the bond passes, to form a committee post haste to determine what kind of use would be best use that building for. You may, if the bond passes in March, that project may not be complete until the end of next winter. It may, in a perfect world, would be complete before winter kicks in, but that's what we said about the bridge too.
Yeah.
So, and what it gets used for will determine, what we would need to put into it. If it's storage, then there's going to be a very minimal amount of money that will need to go into that.
At the very least, we're having Chief's retirement party there.
I mean, that would end up being, a public hearing.
Yeah. A public
If we
hearing.
have a committee that makes a recommendation and it comes to the board, and the next thing you know, there'll be public hearings and more input than a citizens committee will be sought for best use for the building.
Right. Laura?
I have a question about the ETFs.
Mhm.
Do you consider that the town office, highway garage, and town parks and buildings, is it going to happen every year, or is this a once?
I can't say that amount would be in there every year. This is a starting point. So I can't imagine having to put in $125,000 a year for building maintenance. So the fact that we don't have anything is sort of a scary thought, I guess. If we need a new roof, or if we need a new, boilers, we have some leaking in the basement here, things like that. And the building is how old now? 25 years old? Yeah, so I don't anticipate that it will be that large every year.
Is there, because it's quite a big number this year, is there thoughts about maybe doing it over the course of a few years instead of all at once to beginning the taxpayers?
Well, there is now, because I think that's a great consideration. I mean, we're starting it, but do we have to put in $125,000 this year, or do we put more into the, into the town office and a little bit here, or whatever? So I appreciate that, and we will consider it for sure. Jonathan? Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, go ahead.
Okay, Jonathan.
I had a question about the ETS and the Historical Society amounts. Will these be separate, just like unique warrant articles, or is it going to be one package? Like, will each ETF have its own vote, and then the Historical Society be a separate distinct vote?
This will be individual.
Yeah, these will be individual because they're new. I believe each of the ones up top are also, I know we do the social services together. Do we
They're all
do
together for
for the recurring?
yeah, for the recurring, but the new ones will be their own separate articles that you'll vote on individually at town meeting.
Thank
Not
you.
ballot, but.
Thank you.
And
Sarah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, so
No.
the RSA 41:14A, acquisition of sale of land, buildings, or both demolition and disposal of buildings. You guys are allowed to do whatever you want with town buildings because that was passed a few years back at, I can't remember what year, but it was approved at a town meeting.
Okay,
So
thank
I
you.
want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So you did give
Them
give
the-
them permission to move the building.
Okay,
And I
I
did
remember that.
confirm that with town council as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
But they-
It's not just
to do it,
as,
They have to make a motion on the board. so.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a little
Yeah.
more complicated than a private group seeking public assistance to move a building that they house an art museum in. It's a historical building, it's taken a beating where it is, there's no question about it. I can remember conversations we had about moving that building down to where we used to have the skating rink like 15 years ago. We had those conversations. I think it's impressive that they have raised as much as they've raised through private contributions and grants. When they came and met with us, they wanted to remind us that in the time they've been operating that building, they've not asked for not one dime. And so if you amortize that out over the time that they've been in there operating, $100,000 can be seen as kind of short money. I don't see it as short money, but there's a lot to be considering when that comes up, and it will be an individual vote, and I'm sure it'll be a rich discussion.
Thanks, Bob. Jerry?
Yeah, I just, going back to the expendable trust funds, I think it's wise to do that with the departments that we spoke about. The 100,000 for the moving of the Historical Society Town Hall, I think is unwise for the town to do that. On several levels, and I guess the most basic level is that what real benefit is there to the townspeople to a historical society that's open, very few hours a week, and really doesn't get a whole lot of attendance by the townspeople of Jackson? I'm wondering if that is an appropriate bill to give the people of Jackson, with how little the building is accessible. I'm not complaining about that, I just, if they want to raise the money to do it, and the town thinks it's appropriate to take up that green space that's down there with that building, so be it. But I don't think that the taxpayer of Jackson should be asked to fund that.
Mm-hmm. And, that's why we have the warrant articles that we do, and we have the town vote on them. And that's a perfect example of it. I do love the Historical Society, and I think anyone that's been in there can definitely appreciate the amount and the quality of the artifacts that they have there, and the fact that they do want to make it more accessible and have a public restroom and have it handicap accessible will make it a more attractive place to be. But it's a hefty dollar amount. But thanks to all the folks in the past that have put all the time and money into that building and the Historical Society itself, because it is a treasure. I mean, it's tough to tough to ask the town to pay 100,000 for it, but it is a treasure, and we're lucky to have that part of it. But we'll see what, we get to vote on it, so. Any other questions or comments? Jonathan?
I was just curious, and I don't need an answer right now. What are the terms of the agreement the town has with the Historical Society to use the building? Do they pay rent? Is there a reciprocal agreement to take care of the building, et cetera? I don't know that, but it might be pertinent to know that at the vote.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, they have a lease, a yearly lease, $100, and they take care of everything on the building. Not the grounds,
But that's
just the building.
Yeah, it's a good
But-
point to make
yeah.
sure that's
Yeah.
part of the information,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's staffed fully by volunteers.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
thank
Leslie
you.
will be here at the next budget hearing.
Okay.
When you discuss and vote on that article.
Okay,
So she'll be able to answer any questions.
great, thanks, Julie. Jerry?
One last question that I think I'll ask. Thanks. If the townspeople vote at the town meeting to take out a particular line item in the budget, I recognize it's an adjustment to the bottom line. But if the townspeople indicate by supporting that a reduction that by a particular line item, would you pledge individually to honor that request by the voters, or would you pull it from somewhere else?
As the moderator, I didn't think we were allowed to do that, are
So-
we? As the moderator, I don't believe we're allowed to take it out by line item, are we?
No, you're not. Just the bottom
Yes,
line.
in other words, if.
No, I understand
let's
what you're
say there's
asking.
A line item for a new motorcycle for the
Mhm.
police department. And the town says, we'd like to, and that motorcycle is $75,000.
Mm-hmm,
And so there's a line item for that
mm-hmm,
in the police operating budget. And the townspeople want to reduce the bottom line by $75,000,
mm-hmm,
itemizing it, they don't want to buy a motorcycle.
right.
You don't have to, you can buy the motorcycle and take the 75 out of whatever else you want to do. That's
Correct.
legal. But what I'm asking is that would you pledge to honor the wishes of the voters of Jackson on a particular line item?
That would violate.
I guess I don't have a comment on that, because I know, according to the RSA, we are only allowed to change the total budget amount.
That's correct.
So,
That would violate the RSA.
But if you lower it $75,000,
yeah,
you either take out the motorcycle or you take it from somewhere else.
that's correct.
And the selectmen get to decide.
I know
Correct.
that's the law.
Yes.
But what I'm asking you, do you?
Well, I guess, Jerry, it would depend on, when it comes time for the chief to put on his motorcycle helmet, whether we think that's a good investment.
nice
But,
motorcycle.
I just
but
don't think
I
I'm
hear-
going away from it.
No, I understand, I understand what you're saying, but, and I think you know the answer to the question as far as what our legality is. We would change the bottom line if it were, if it were brought up at town meeting and it were passed, voted on by the townspeople that are there to reduce the budget, then the budget would be reduced. When it comes to spending the money, that's up to the select board at the time that expenses are
So
brought
you're
forth.
saying you would use your discretion, you would not make such a pledge that you would.
That's correct. Any thoughts on that?
I won't make a pledge.
Hmm?
I won't make a pledge here tonight.
Let's just cross that bridge when
Yes.
we get to it.
Yes,
It depends.
yes, it depends, TBD. Any other questions? Oh, hi, Dick.
Hi, are we gonna be able to fight over the regional airport $500?
No.
I hope so.
I want to have the fireworks at the airport. On footage.
No.
On July 30th.
Any other, you know how much the fireworks cost on July 4th? $25,000 versus July 3rd, when it's like $4,000 or something, so.
Do we have a date? Drone show.
I don't know. I think it's the 5th or 6th.
I think it's the 6th.
Yeah.
So. All right, folks, any other questions or comments? reminders, next Tuesday, the budget meeting next Tuesday is at 3:30. It's following the select board meeting at 3:30. And if you haven't been to our select board meetings, they go pretty darn fast. So come early, come bring crowds, and then please remember to vote on March 9th and the 11th, whatever, the town meeting. Please remember to bring your ID so you can vote on the ballot items at the town meeting. It's very important. It's also very important because that's going to vote, those votes that night are going to make the decision on many important warrant articles that night. We need to have people at that meeting. Not 50 people, we need like 400 or 500 people. Karen?
The poll pads will be in use, that's the intention for town meetings, so checking in should be as quick as it normally is at regular elections. So that's something we found out we get to use at the town.
Great, that's great. Anything else, Bob, Frank?
No, good.
You have your coat on already.
I know.
All right. 7:27, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Could have done that.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.